to the risk that we can provide for, and also to the risk of damage to you. Damages are usually awarded up to the point that a non-infringing alternative is available, and we do have the right to modify the product so it's non-infringing, and that way you can continue doing business. Just because you're sued for infringement doesn't mean you're going to be out of business. We'll design a way around that so you can keep on working, and we will provide indemnity up to the risk of loss that you're likely to face. When we identify and when we don't, again, that's under contract. It also depends on the type of contract. For example, if you're purchasing Business Edition, it doesn't make sense to offer indemnity. For Switchvox, it depends on the countries that you're doing business in. It depends on if we've got an application pending or not. Just because we don't have an application in a country doesn't mean you can't do business in there. It just means we'd either chose not to trademark it in that country, or we were unsuccessful because there was a mark very, very similar to ours. And just because we weren't successful registering it because of a similar mark doesn't mean that company was against us. It just means the examiner decided to disapprove our trademark. I got into patent indemnity. When we identify, when we don't, well, it doesn't make sense to offer copyright indemnity on hardware. So we do offer it usually in our license agreements. Well, it's really, really easy to maintain control for copyright indemnity. So we're very lenient on that, much more lenient than we are with patent indemnity. Okay, so to sum up, we cover the different types of intellectual property. When you use Asterisk, the risks you might face, how we help you with those risks, our Google AdWords policy. I must have skipped a slide, I don't know how. We did the Google AdWords policy because we noticed when you type in the word asterisk or digium, a lot of competitors were pulling up, and people had signed contracts with us where we gave them rights to our trademark, and it was pulling people away from those persons who had signed a contract with us and were paying good money towards our competitors. So we decided to go to what you could call the whitelist, the list of authorized companies, persons who could buy our trademark on Google AdWords. And we were just unfortunate. We underestimated the amount of people who were purchasing our trademark legitimately, and it was beneficial in a way because we learned how many users were out there. It caught up a lot of unaffiliated resellers, a lot of e-tailers, people that we wanted to use our mark. So after we realized that, and again, it was unfortunate, but it was also beneficial. After we realized that, it took us maybe 3 months of wrangling with Google, and I'm still wrangling with Google, to switch to the blacklist. I still wrangle with Google every day. We switched to the blacklist, and it's a list of maybe 15 or 20 companies that aren't authorized to purchase our trademarks as AdWords. How we determine that is, well, it's pretty obvious to us who's our competitor, and well, sometimes our customers who have signed contracts with us will contact us and tell us that they're having problems with a competitor's AdWord pulling up over theirs, so they go on the blacklist. And we still had a lot of difficulty with Google denying people who should be able to buy AdWords. That's just due to Google. If you think you should be on the authorized list, let me know. It's a problem with Google. They're just complicated people to deal with. When I call them, I get a different person every time I talk to them. When I try to say, can I talk to Andrea, the person I talked to before, Andrea's in a meeting. Andrea's in a meeting 24/7. So I'm working on that. And if you have any problems and you should be able to buy AdWords, let me know. I answer to the trademarks at Digium address. And I think that's it, unless I skipped over a slide. Any questions? Yes.
In what countries or what kinds of operations are using Asterisk that where you were not able to get that? Were you not able to protect it? What markets, for example? Is any example?
Some of them were, well, I can go ahead and tell you, some of them weren't due to, sometimes when we can't register a trademark, we'll contact the company who's unable to, who's got the application registered, and we work out a coexistence agreement. And a lot of times they just go AWOL, for example, Norway. We're unable to register the trademark Digium because of Digimon, and they wanted to work out a coexistence agreement with us, but they were just hard to get a hold of, and it doesn't mean that we can't sell products in those countries. It just means we're unsuccessful, and reasons like that. Sometimes they're in completely different categories of goods, but the trademark system in other countries is different than ours. For example, in the US, they run a conflicts check for confusing or similar applications. They don't do that in other countries. That's why we subscribe to the watch service, because identical applications can pop up.
For example, this is a URL. It's like it's asterisk.pbx.in.
That's another one. That's another one. Let me tell you about that. I got a lot of emails about, well, the word asterisk, A-S-T-E-R-I-X, is popping up. So Google tells me to submit all the misspellings, and every single misspelling is generic and descriptive. And if I have a problem with that, I should contact the company directly. So, yes.
Well, for example, this URL obviously claims to be the open source asterisk PBX. So that is a violation, right?
Yes, it is.
Asterisk.pbx.in.
Yes, it is. Well, it's misspelling. Does it have the bubble logo?
It's proper spelling. A-S-T-E-R-I-S-K.
Yeah, that is a violation. That's a violation, and that'll probably be reported. Shoot me an email at the trademarks@digium address, and we'll follow up.
Is PBX somehow part of the, sorry, PBX part of the, is that somewhere in the registration as well, or not?
No.
Because it does distinguish.
Yeah, and when we do trademark enforcement, we prioritize according to the level of severity. For example, domain names, yes, it's a violation of our policy. It's really, really hard to follow up. We make the best efforts that we can. But when we see, for example, someone using our logo, we'll follow up more quickly. It depends on how confused the consumer is likely to be. If they pull up that asterisk pbx.com and they see it's obviously not us, then it's not as much a priority as our logo saying Digium affiliated reseller. When they're not, that's going to be a priority. Any other questions?
It's working? Yeah.
The person with all the answers, thank you.
You're using GPL version 2. Did you thought about switching to GPL version 3?
No, we're not. No, we're staying with GPL version 2.
Okay, why?
That would probably be more of a Kevin and Mark question. I know there were some changes made to the GPL version 3, and I know there was a reason we wanted to stick with version 2, but I don't want to be wrong and have someone correct me, so I won't get into that.
I can say that one of them has to do with the way that patents are handled in the GPL version 3.
How are they handled?
Well, in version 2, it basically says that, I don't remember the exact language now.
Doesn't it say if they enforce their patent, then?
Any patents you have, you won't use any patents you have to prevent the distribution, the use of their code, which is fine. But in GPL v3, it explicitly says you're granting a specific patent license for any patents that are embodied in the code. And then it starts to get into the question, well, what happened if you...
Can you hear him okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, if there's a patent that you end up infringing in the code unknowingly, then under GPL v3, you're still granting a license for that patent rather than...
Oh.
It's much more explicit about what you're doing. So it's got some stuff that's kind of unpleasant, we'll just say, on the patent side. There was more to it than that, but that's just one of the things.
Essentially what it comes down to is we just don't see any specific reason to change. And since GPL 2 and GPL 3 are compatible, if you want to use products together, that's not a problem. There doesn't seem to be any reason to change.
Where do you mean they're compatible?
Any other questions? Legal.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.